Hello and welcome to my channel. It's me, Gabrielle B, known right here on YouTube as the Church Consultant. And today we're jumping right into the video. If you did not know, on Sunday, Bishop T.D. Jakes named his successor to lead the Potter's House. Let's take a look.
Big changes at one of the largest churches in Dallas. T.D. Jakes announced today he is stepping down as senior pastor of the Potter's House.
But I wanted to introduce to you your pastors.
Jake's daughter, Sarah Jakes Roberts, and her husband, Torrey Roberts, will take over as senior pastors. They are expected to officially take over later this year. They've been assistant pastors since 2023. Jakes says he will remain as chairman of the board and spiritual overseer of the congregation he founded back in 1996.
And of course, right after this news broke, I received an email from a friend and it said, quote, Bishop T.D. Jakes names a new successor to the Potter's House. What do you think about it? Do you think they were a good choice from a succession perspective? Wow, that was such a great question. So I wanted to make this video to share my thoughts and my perspective. As it said in the video clip, Sarah Jakes Roberts and her husband, Pastor Torrey Roberts, will take over as senior pastors of the Potter's House. And when I first heard this news, some of my initial thoughts were, of course, right? Of course, this is the natural next step. And I don't actually have a problem with it. And more importantly, I think that it is great that Bishop T.D. Jakes is actually naming a successor. So many people don't, and it causes so much unnecessary drama in the body of Christ. And guys, let us not forget that Bishop Jakes suffered a heart attack while delivering a sermon last November. The incident happened while service was going on and while service was being live streamed, and he froze mid-sentence and started shaking, and his friends and family had to rush to help him. And in fact, he actually mentions that as one of the main reasons why he named the successor.
I cannot afford, especially after November, to risk something happening to me and you be sheep without a shepherd. I talked to the board because I was concerned. I have seen too many men build something and stay so long that they kill what they build.
And I know you guys are so tired. You had a heart attack on stage and still asked for the microphone so that they would be okay over you. I know what this cost.
Seeing Sarah Jakes cry touches me every time I watch that clip. It is so hard to watch because I know that place. As a daughter of a politician myself, I know what it's like to watch your father pour their heart out for their people and to live for their people. And it's just tough that in the moment where, he needs the most attention, his attention and focus is focused on, are the people okay? And it's tough, honestly. And I know it's not just tough for people like me whose fathers are politicians or people like Sarah, whose dad is a pastor. It's tough on anyone in general to see people who we care about face any sort of health challenges. And in this age where widely known pastors are getting sick and facing health challenges, we're talking about Bishop T.D. Jakes, but we could easily be talking about Dr. Bill Winston, who had a stroke a few months ago that left him bound in a wheelchair. And there are just so many others. It's just so tough to see this older generation of what we like to call giants, if you will, in the faith, just facing health challenges. And I really do think that for me, it kind of strikes a little bit of a different chord. And I think that more importantly, we should be having this conversation within our churches about death not the only way to leave the pulpit, right? Death is not the only way to leave the pulpit. Pastors should not have to die before there is a change of power. I know that recently the Pope died, Pope Francis, and it's just kind of like this I don't know, maybe very Catholic type belief that like there is a change of power, or there is a new pope at death. And I think in the evangelical Christian churches, whether we say it or not say it, there's almost this similar belief that pastor's going to run forever. Or even some pastors kind of believe that like we're going to run this ministry forever, especially if they're our founding pastors. I just have a tendency to see that they stay long past their effectiveness. And out of respect for them, no one's really willing to say, I respect pastors so much that I just don't know if I want to be that blunt and say like your effectiveness was like 20 years ago. And that culture with that type of people like might be time to pass on the baton. And I'm glad, honestly, when I think of Bishop T.D. Jakes naming a successor and opening up this conversation again for other church leaders to possibly consider, that you might be time to name a successor for you or your church and your ministry. So I'm glad to see that Bishop T.D. Jakes is moving on in this way. Now, as for the succession question in the email asked, do you think they were a good choice from a succession perspective? Now, succession, we all know it's multifaceted. There's so many aspects and things to consider, but I have like a quick list, a short list that when someone asks me, hey, give me a few things that I should be looking at because I want to start praying about naming a new successor, I like to give them this short list and I'll share it with you. So does the person that you are going to consider as a successor, number one, possess a genuine relationship with the Lord? I'm not talking about they have all the Bible, all of that. I have all the theology, all of the degrees. All that is so important, but more importantly, do they love Jesus? Do they believe in his Bible? Have they had a life-changing experience and a personal relationship with him? Don't just choose the person that comes in the best wrapping and have all the trappings and all of the degrees and pieces of paper. Choose the one that says, hey, I was this way and then Jesus came and found me. And now I am this way as a result of him. The next question and things that we like to look at is, do they exhibit foundational Christian character and beliefs? What is their belief? What is their theological understanding? Do they actually believe what the Bible says? And do you see fruit of that in their lives? Number 3, do they have a heart for the people? And I know some of you might be saying, okay, come on, Gabrielle, some of these go without saying, but you would be surprised how many people want the position of the pastorate, but don't want to deal with the people. They want the position, right? I want the prestige. I want all of the benefits that go along with this title of being called pastor. But the people, that's kind of like a necessary afterthought. Yeah, that's not the type of person that we want to name as a successor. We want one that we are going to name that whether they have that title or not, they smell like sheep, right? They are so in it with the people and they are doing life with the people that they are a good shepherd, whether they have the title of shepherd or senior pastor or whatever, they have the pulse of the people. And so it's so important not to bypass that, because a lot of people will come, especially if there's some sort of like application process for this, instead of it being like just something private and intimate across the board. People will come far and wide just for title and position. And so we really have to make sure that they have a heart for people. The next is number 4, can they actually do the job? Right? Do they have real qualifications and experiences? I've seen cases where, we want Bill the janitor to be the next senior pastor. He's young, he loves the church, he's cleaning the church. And hey, sometimes people who start off cleaning the church make fantastic pastors, right? But sometimes they don't. They're just not qualified to do so. So we want to make sure that we are choosing someone that can actually do the job. It doesn't mean that they can actually do the fullness of the job today, but they have aspirations, right? Because there's a training period. I might not be able to do everything today, but I actually have the capacity to fulfill this role as senior pastor. And number 5 on my list is have natural influence outside of the appointment. right? They don't have to walk around with the founder's signet ring on to get people to act. If we look at them now, they have their natural following, whether that's on their job, they're some sort of leader and people are listening to them. They are able to establish influence outside of a title, outside of the appointment. That's so important when you're looking for someone to take over, either in the position of the senior pastor, or even if you're in some sort of senior administrative role, you want someone that they don't have to say, like, Gabrielle said that you need to do this. So, and then people start to act. You want them to naturally walk into places and people are naturally leaning in to listen to them for who they are and what they bring and the leadership aspects that they already have. I think influence is not only one of the main things that is overlooked when we are talking about succession planning, but it also is overlooked when we are naming leaders to run ministries, leaders to run outreaches and things like that. Sometimes we choose the most faithful person, but it's not the person that has the most influence and leadership ability. And that person shows up, but guess what? Nobody else shows up because they don't have the ability to influence others. And I would say number 6 on my short list is grit. Are they gritty? Like, I don't know. I just feel like, I don't want to get crucified for saying this, but like America is kind of getting a little soft, right? I don't want the culture of America to lose grit, right? That tenacity that comes with, like, still I rise. Like, it does not matter what you throw my way. I have grit to myself. Like, I will put it all out on the line. I'm going after it. Like, I saw something, I'm going to get excited about it, because you don't find a lot of people that are just gritty. They don't have all the things. They don't literally have just everything laid out for them. In some way, somehow, they make it there. They're at the finish line. They found a way to rise above. And grit is necessary. Grit is necessary for people during the transition. Grit is necessary for them to continue to grow and move the vision that the founder essentially established forward. Do they have grit? And so I always look for that when we are naming successors for senior leadership and or just senior pastors in general. And it's oftentimes, as I mentioned before, something that is overlooked, but it is so important because we know things are not going to go the way that you thought that they were going to go. And you can't just wave your little flag of surrender, right? You got to get up and get after it and try again and learn from the mistakes that you've made and continue to go back to the Lord and to be staunch in your belief and the work that you are doing and not to be moved so that you can continue to run your race. It takes grit to be a Christian. It takes grit to run a church, to run the race that we have been called to run. And so that is an extremely important characteristic. So with my short list in mind and with the question at hand of, is Pastor Sarah Jakes Roberts and her husband, Torrey Roberts, a good fit? I mean, not knowing too much about them, I would say so. We have to consider the fact that Pastor Bishop T.D. Jakes has been mentoring them since 2023. They were assistant pastors since 2023, and they have been increasing their roles over the years. And also, we cannot forget that Pastor Torrey, before coming to the Potter's house, was a pastor and had experience, or at least if he wasn't a pastor, he was a ministry speaker and ran a ministry. And so he had influence outside of marrying Sarah Jakes. So I think that they are a fitting choice. Now, of course, after my friend sent me this email, we talked in person about it, and they asked me, and I'm pausing here and doing all these theatrics because they asked me the question that a lot of people have been thinking is, do I think that the timing was a coincidence? And am I suspicious of the timing as it relates to Bishop T.D. Jakes' announcement of secession? And guys, in all honesty, if some of you don't know what I'm talking about, real quick, I'll just say that according to Google, the P. Diddy trial is scheduled to begin around May 5th of this year. And of course, the internet will not let us forget that Bishop T.D. Jakes was named, his name appeared in a lawsuit, and it alleged that Combs planned to leverage his relationship with Bishop T.D. Jakes to soften the impact of Cassie Venture's lawsuit. But you guys, it's just critical to remember that Bishop T.D. Jakes is not named as a defendant in this civil lawsuit. And yes, I know that his name was named. And yes, I kind of understand that there's just a crazy amount of stuff that is on the internet about him and just so much. And so some of us are kind of like, well, let me say, some of you are kind of like, ooh, I don't know. Like Bishop is stepping down right before the trial. And I don't know. Like, that's my answer. I do not know. I do not know if it's planned. I do not know I don't know. I'm not even gonna speculate here. I'm just bringing it up because my friend thought about it. And if they thought about it, I'm thinking perhaps you're thinking about that too. We can't speculate. We don't know. For right now, the facts that we do know is that Bishop T.D. Jakes is naming a successor and he's stepping down from the Potter's house, that he has named Sarah Jakes Roberts and her husband, Pastor Torrey Roberts, to run the Potter's house, and that Bishop will still be at the Potter's house in some sort of limited capacity. That is what we know. All this other stuff, the AI generated stuff, we just don't know about that. And everything that we see on the internet, we just cannot believe everything that we see. So I'm going to leave it at that because I do not know. And I know that you guys will let me know in the comments what you think about this whole thing. If you made it to the end of this video, thanks for watching. And if you enjoyed this video, please consider liking and subscribing to my channel. We'd love to hear your church story or any news surrounding church that you would like to share. You can always send us an email at story@thechurchconsultant.org. If you want to connect with us, you can find us on the web at our website at www.thechurchconsultant.com, or you can find us on Facebook at The Church Consultant. If you love to read, and I'm still looking for all of you who love to read. So if you love to read, or if you just want to learn more about church administration, church leadership, and topics associated with church, consider joining the Church Consultant Book Club, where we read church stories and discuss it on Facebook. I will leave more information about the TCC Book Club in the description box below. All right, so that is it for today's video. And as always, remember, the work we are doing is impactful and our mission to spread the gospel is meaningful. And until next time, be blessed.